you have to rent equipment. I learned when I was younger that you can buy up a bunch of your own equipment and then rent it back to the client. As a photographer these days, you should be a filmmaker. Pretty much every job I'm on, I have to film motion. Beauty is embarrassing. You have to get your beauty out and show it to the world.
Hello again, and welcome back to F22. This show is brought to you by VSCO, and in this episode, I'm talking with Tom Sanders, who is a fascinating combination of celebrity and longevity photographer. And he's also a photography professor with his master's degree in photography, and he has 2 published books. He and I had an amazing conversation about finding your niche and building your business and so much more. So let's just get right into my conversation with Tom Sanders. All right, hello, and welcome, Tom, to F22. It's so amazing to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, just to get us started, why don't you tell people who you are, where you are, and the kind of work you do so we can figure out who you are.
Oh, I should start with this. My grandfather, his name was Willis Sanders, and he took this semi-famous portrait of Ernest Hemingway on his boat in Cuba in 1954. And it's a part of the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery.
Wow. And
he was a World War II veteran, which we're going to come back to in a little bit because it's part of my photography story. And after he got back from World War II, he went to RIT, the Rochester Institute of Technology, and that was one of the very few schools focusing on photography at that time. And what on a quick side note, what's interesting, they had all these chemistry and all these math classes for photography program, which is I think so funny.
Well, interesting fun fact: we hired a color scientist from RIT for some of the presets that we made a while ago with the film process. And I actually went to RIT to recruit. So I've been there. It's a wonderful place. Amazing.
Yeah. I think the mathematical and science component of art is interesting that they're teaching that. I mean, I would not be able to get through that program back then. It's
intense.
My brain works. Yeah. But so he gets back from World War II, goes to RIT, and then he becomes the chief Delta photographer at Delta Airlines. Wow. And he was in Cuba for some photo assignment. Someone comes up to him and he says, Ernest Hemingway in his famous book, The Polar, is right around the corner. You should go photograph him. And my grandfather only had 2 sheets of 4x5 film left and his speed graphics camera. And so he went and met Hemingway and photographed 2 photos of him with those 2 sheets of film. The Old Man in the Sea was there, who the book is based after, his boat hand, and his wife. And so my grandfather took these 2 photos and had scotch on the Polar at sunset, and that's his kind of claim to fame. Yeah. And so I grew up with that story. Photography is very much in my genes. That creative gene is very much in our blood.
And so you're focused on, you said, longevity photography. Maybe tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So bring it back up. World War II again. My senior year of college, I had this random homework assignment, and there just happened to be a senior living community that was near where I was living. And I just literally walked in there one day and I said, found the activities or salesperson, do you have any interesting people to photograph? And they had this Woody Woodpecker cartoonist, like the original cartoonist, lived there.
Wow.
Which is kind of cool. I'm sure you probably grew up with some Woody Woodpecker cartoons, right?
Yeah.
And today, most people might not know what it is. And then they had this World War II hero that lived there. His name was Randall Harris. And I went to Randall's apartment and I said, Randall, what's your story? And when I asked him that, before he even started telling his story, he pulled up his shirt and pulled down his pants, which made me super nervous. Right? Just I'm here, this 20-year-old alone with this old World War II veteran's apartment. And he showed me this huge scar on his stomach and on his thighs.
Wow.
And then his brother, Bobby Sanders, died during the Battle of the Bulge. So once I photographed that first World War II veteran, I was like, I kind of understand what my grandfather went through, and these silly things in college I'm worried about really aren't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Right. So I just created this plan. I wrote it on a piece of paper, stuck it on my wall, and I said I wanted to travel the country, photograph as many World War II veterans as I possibly could, and try to get a big book published. And so I moved down to Los Angeles, and that's where I started my career. I was very fortunate in that I have an uncle and aunt that live there, and I moved in with them for a year. I didn't have to pay rent, and I started just emailing all these photographers, asking if I could photo assist them, and I didn't really have to worry about a lot of expenses. At that time, I look back and I should have had like a weekend job. It's so hard. It's so hard being a freelancer, especially when you're just starting out, because you have to be available for the freelance work.
Right.
But you also need that money consistency. So it's like hard to like find that balance. So I was really lucky in that sense. And so I was also, once I moved down to Los Angeles, I just would start, finding these. There's like in Seal Beach in Southern California, there's this place called Leisure World. It's a pretty cool place. It's almost like, I don't know if you've ever been to UC Santa Barbara. Like, I felt like I was in like a senior development college town. Like all these old folks are riding around on bikes. Wow. And I was like super happy. It was so cool. So I went there and I started photographing World War II veterans and just building up that portfolio while I was photo assisting these different celebrity photographers and working on these fashion shoots. And then, one big tip I really want to emphasize, I say this as a professor as well, is as a photographer, in order to get work, you have to photograph all these personal projects, and then you just have to get it out there and market the work. And I'll provide some other examples of that in a little bit. And so I'm just building up that portfolio. I photographed this one great guy. He had a key from Hitler's home, like after World War II, after America or the United States had gone in there and taken over. They call it the Eagle's Nest, Hitler's home. He went into the fanciest bedroom, and there happened to be a key in the doorknob, and he took it out of the doorknob. And so I photographed him. When I first photographed him, I had him hold the key in his hand, but it felt too small. So I was like, let's put it in your mouth, like you're devouring this evilness. Yeah. And so in the photo, he's like has Hitler's key in his mouth.
That's cool.
Yeah. So then there's a senior living company called Belmont Village Senior Living, and it's pretty crazy. I've had an ongoing partnership with them since my early 20s. So it's like something like 17 or 18 years. Yeah. And for the first photo shoot, they didn't pay me. They said, we'll give you access to our residents that are World War II veterans, and you can photograph them. And then that ended up resulting in a permanent gallery. And then, so I did that for free. And then the president of the company flew out from Texas and saw the show, and she said, Tom, we want you to go. We want to pay you. We want to send you to all our communities around the country to photograph World War II vets. At the time, they had about, I think, 15 communities. And then I had enough material to get this book published, right? With Welcome Books, which is a subsidiary of Random House, and now it's, I think, Rizzoli that's kind of gotten passed around to where I could pitch this book. And that happened when I was about 26 years old.
Wow. So it seems like you did not intend in your career, you didn't start out looking for longevity in World War II veterans. This sort of came to you. Is that kind of your niche? Is that your thing now?
In my mid 20s, I was also like, I want to be like a celebrity photographer. Like I love Frank, Frank Ockenfell, his work. Oh, you got to go to his website. He's like any big movie poster. Like he shot all the Harry Potter movie posters. Like you can go to his website. You can see how he photographed the celebrities like on a gray backdrop, and then they'll show the poster right next to it. He's one of my favorites, and he has this really fun. He has this really great journal where he puts. It's like this collage journal. But I see Frank as kind of like this fine art, commercial celebrity photographer. He does such great work. Yeah. So I was kind of striving to be that. Yeah. But I think to be a celebrity photographer in Los Angeles, you got to be out there networking all the time and rubbing shoulders with the right people. And in my mid to late 20s, before I moved out to LA, and I started to get some of those bigger celebrity jobs, like for Variety magazine. I was hired to photograph the Cole Kidman and Charlize Theron and Kerry Washington, and it was awesome. And I photographed them at the Beverly Hilton and had to do this big studio set up, and nice. And so I started getting these celebrity jobs, but then I had moved up to Northern California to go to graduate school, and so I wasn't living in Los Angeles anymore, and so I kind of missed out on photographing the celebrities, and so. When I was about 30 years old. So another big tip is the more niche oriented you are, that's how you get the most work as a photographer. Now, if you live in a little small town, you still can be niche oriented and live in a remote town and not be a metropolitan city, but you really have to be good at like marketing yourself and getting your name out there if you don't live near like a larger metropolitan city, because in those metropolitan cities you're going to get that local work that pays more money. So so when I was about 30, so let me take a few steps back here. So like if you want to be a fashion photographer, are you going to shoot kids fashion? Right. Are you going to shoot sports apparel? Right? It helps because then people know, like these companies know that you specialize in shooting sports apparel, like Lululemon or Athleta. If you don't have, female yoga attire in your portfolio, portraits of it, they're not going to hire you. Yeah. Because they can't trust that you're going to produce, good fashion sports apparel photos. And then the other great thing is, like, for example, if you're a fashion sports apparel photographer and then shoot some celebrity athletes and stuff like that, then you can just market to a bunch of, sports fashion related companies, celebrities. And it's just easier to market. When you're shooting everything under the sun, it's very overwhelming where you could be marketing to so many, different companies. Yeah. And so we'll get more into the business stuff in a little bit, but when I was about 30, I was like, I'm just going to only market to these longevity, older adults, baby boomers, 70, 80-year-old, 90 plus, healthcare or companies where I'm photographing, old folks for the most part. And that's really when, my career really took off once I started specializing in that. And it's just a little easier to market to as well. Yeah. So like if you want to shoot for a big company like Nike, right? Like everyone wants to shoot for Nike, I'm sure, or Nat Geo or something like that. It's just really, really competitive. Mm-hmm. And there's these art buyers at ad agencies, there's creative directors at ad agencies. So in my line of work, it's easier for me to get my work in front of these people, and it leads to work, I think more quickly.
Fascinating. So you've really found a niche in this longevity photography, and that's really when your career took off, is when you found that thing that everybody else wasn't competing for, and now you've got a solid line of work that nobody else has. That's amazing. And you mentioned that you're a professor. I don't think we covered that. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do there?
Yeah, I am a professor at the Savannah College of Art and Design, and I teach intro to studio lighting classes, advanced studio lighting classes, business classes, and then basic and introductory photography classes, both on campus and online.
Got it. And so now that you're pretty well into your career, it sounds like you've really kind of made this longevity photography your niche. Where does your work come from? Is it continuous? Are you having to go out there and network and find it, kind of like that you're talking about in LA, or what does your business look like?
It's a great question. I think as a freelance photographer, even when you have a photo agent, you're always on the hunt for new work because you might have a regular client. Like I had a regular client that was hiring me from 2015 to 2018, and then COVID hit, and then the company had some turnover and hired some new people. And then they started hiring me a bunch last year and into this year, right? And that's just one client. Yeah. And so it's just, I think you always have to be hunting. And I think you got to, I see photography advertising as always, there's these different tools, right? You gotta have a website that you can send to people. Social media, I think, is important, but I think you can still be successful without having a social media platform if you're really good at networking. Well, I mean, that's...
I was just going to say, I think that's an important thing for people to hear, because I think for so many of us, we get started, we get on social media, and the success stories that we see there just seem like the only success stories. And anybody that's not a huge influencer on Instagram or wherever that we're seeing, we don't see them, so we don't know about that. But that's come up a couple of times in this show that, there's these people that aren't really huge on social networks, but are actually doing a lot of work. And it's just because of their network, like you're saying.
Yeah. I love, Instagram and TikTok and of course, VSCO, right? And And this social media platforms are a free tool. And if you pay for some of those tools, you can get, people can see your profile more easily and pay for ads and stuff like that. So it's definitely a really, really powerful tool that you should be utilizing. But it's just one piece of the pie, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't just be posting to social media. You got to go to conferences and network with people. And the hard part is, I think not to stereotype all artists are introverted, but I think a lot of artists are introverted and just want the work to come to them or want people to come to them. But, I always tell my students that you want to be great at business and great at art, and you'll get work, you'll be successful. You can be great at art and someone could discover you, you could be like a freak of nature and just be so amazing that you get these photo agents and they'll sell it for you, which, happens a little bit of the time. But if you're not you can also actually be a mediocre photographer and be really great at networking and kill it, right? And we've seen some of that work out there.
Yep.
So, if you're not so good at business, not a talented artist, that's where things could be a challenge. I don't know, answer that question?
Yeah. So if somebody is really focused on the art and starting to realize that they want to get their career going, take it to the next level, trying to figure out what business components they need to be elevating, where do they start? I'm sure with you having so many students, you see this a lot. I don't know, do you have any practical advice for how to level up your business as a photographer?
So you can market through social media, through networking, like physically meeting people. You can do paid ads, right? Okay. You can try and do some, Facebook regional ad where hopefully, your potential clients on there. That would probably work well with weddings. Like if you're a wedding photographer and you wanted to get your name out, like Savannah's a big wedding city. Yeah. So that'd be a good place maybe to pay for Facebook ads.
Yep.
You can cold call. That's something that I don't think people think and talk a lot about. I don't do it. That's one thing that I need to do more of. You email a potential client and then you call them up, and we don't know if they're working remotely. We don't know if they're in the corporate office, but I just did it recently, and it happened to work out. I called the VP of marketing of this company, and I left a voicemail, and then then I got an email from the creative director saying that, my boss told me that I needed to connect with you, and we had a Zoom meeting, and hopefully that will lead to work.
Yeah.
And so the biggest thing is, sales leads, I think sounds like a dirty word as a creative. Do you think that's kind of true as an artist? It's
Yeah, it always, at least for, I'm somebody who the business stuff does not come naturally. I don't enjoy it. And so it's something that I've had to work at. And anything that's feels like marketing and salesy, it just feels slimy. It feels corporate. I don't want to do it. I just want to, in my truest self, I just want to make good art and let that be enough, but it's not.
Me too. And I feel the exact same way. I want everyone to watch this movie. Let's listen to this. It's called Beauty is Embarrassing. And it's about this guy named Wayne White, who was one of the original puppet creators on Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse. And then he goes on to do these music videos for Smashing Pumpkins. Oh. And then he has these really awesome paintings where he takes these Goodwill paintings and he puts in these big blocky letters, these words that poke fun at the art world. It's the funniest, best thing ever.
Oh, that's great.
But in the documentary came out, I think in 2011. And in the movie, he's giving these talks to young artists, and he says, beauty is embarrassing. You have to get your beauty out and show it to the world. So if you can tell yourself that in terms of being a sales person as an artist, it's going to help you, get your work out there.
Right.
Much more easily. So here's the big thing. So let's go back to your sports apparel fashion photographer. I know that's very particular. You can use a company like Agency Access or Bikini Lists. They have a big database of, Nike and Reebok, whatever, these big companies. So you go through that list, find the ad agencies that represent Nike or Reebok, whatever. And then you get all their emails. You're paying for it for a monthly fee. And then you get an Excel sheet. And then you have other phone numbers or emails. You do a big email promo. So that's something else that that I think photographers should be doing. It used to be that you should send out email promos 6 times a year. But I think you should do it about, once every 1.5 months. I get Poshmark emails like 3 times a day. I'm like, how do I unsubscribe from this? Right. So I think that you should be sending out an email promo about 9 times a year to these potential clients.
Okay.
And then through these different email companies, MailChimp, Email Octopus, Campaign Monitor, some are actually free up to a certain amount of emails. When you send out those emails, you can see who opened them up and then who clicked through your emails, right? So all those people that opened up your emails, you could call up. And then it's the click-through rate those are the people you really should be calling. So like if you send out 1,000 emails, I think the industry standard is that like 3% of people will click on your emails, which isn't a lot, right? And it depends if you do a good subject header, like sometimes it can be more than that. So you send out 1,000 emails, 3% is only 30 or 40 people or something like that. And then there's your list. There's those 30 or 40 people that you try and call on the phone. Hopefully they respond back to you. You can mail them a promo card, or you can mail them. I really like Blurb. They do these nice magazines.
So you're talking about sending mailers, like physical print mailers.
Yeah, I think that the other hard part about all the remote working these days is if you do send someone a promo card or a portfolio, you just don't know if they're going to get it. So I think that if you know that the person is in their office and maybe they said you could send it to them, then you mail it to them. So then the hard part is like, okay, you have this Excel list of all these contacts and okay, Betty Jo from XYZ company, she liked my work. She said, stay in touch with me. So now it's like, okay, well, she might hire me in the future.
Yeah.
But how often should I stay in touch with her? And so that's why you can set up those email promos or call her up every few months. And that is exhausting.
Yeah.
It is not easy. But the idea is that you market enough and you're doing it on a regular basis that eventually you start getting these clients, which will happen if you're talented, a nice person, and you have good work. And then from there, you'll start getting more and more work. And so, and the other cool part is people move around to different companies. So like, one, like for the celebrity photography, like the photography photo shoots I was getting in my late 20s, that photo editor or that creative director was at a smaller magazine in Los Angeles, and then he became the creative director at Variety, and he was hiring me at the smaller magazine, and they started hiring me at Variety. So that's where it helps, just that snowball effect.
Yeah, that's great. So you're keeping in touch with people, you're reaching out to people. You mentioned earlier that, if an art director is looking for something specific and you don't have that on your portfolio, they're not going to hire you. So then are you going out and creating basically like personal work or kind of test shoots for the particular clients that you've now got on that Excel sheet, like just to kind of show them, hey, I can do this work? Or are you just kind of waiting, or how? I don't know. What else is there to that process?
Yeah, I think that it's a combination of things. Like I have enough work now that I can just, take that client work and put it onto my website. Yeah. But like right now, like we're launching this social media branch for these healthcare companies. And I've done 2 social media jobs for these companies for free to build up my portfolio and to start pitching to clients.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to get out there and produce that personal work and then market it to these bigger clients. Oh, I have a great example.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but living out in California and growing up watching Forrest Gump and then moving to Georgia, I really wanted to photograph like a fishing boat captain or a shrimp boat captain. I don't know why. I just wanted to do that. Yeah. So like last year, I reached out to a bunch of fishing boat captains. I photographed this guy, came to my house in these studio portraits. And then in Savannah, there's this local museum called the Ships of the Maritime Museum. So I just found, it's smaller museums. You usually can find like the curator's email on there. Yeah. Or maybe I just called her. I definitely called her up as well. But I got her email. I sent her my photo of this fishing boat captain. I said, hey, it'd be really cool to photograph like, Savannah fishing boat captains for a show. And she said, well, coincidentally, we want to do this show on ocean tattoo collectors. So people that have like nautical tattoos, ocean tattoos for our museum, for this up and coming exhibit. are you interested? And I said, I would love to do that. And so, I ended up photographing tattoo collectors, and this other photographer ended up photographing the tattoo artists. And it's up until Labor Day in Savannah. Wow. And they paid me for it too. So again, I just photographed this one fishing captain. Yeah. Thought, hey, let's reach out to this museum curator. See, it doesn't always happen that easily, of course, but that's a perfect example of producing personal work that, looks really good, and they see the talent in it that can come into fruition.
And I think it's a really good example of what is meant by sales and marketing and the business side. Not only did you create this work, but then you didn't just put it up on social media into the void, hoping that the right person saw it. You found some people that you thought might be the right person, and you sent it to them, and you called them, and you're not being annoying, but you're basically like you're the CEO of your own self, trying to make stuff happen, running your business. And I think that's a really important distinction. And it's a great example for people to be able to see that. I remember doing similar things, just going to random places, cold calling, going into somewhere like, hey, can I take a picture? And, usually people are totally understanding. You just kind of have to get over that hump of it's weird to do this, but it can lead to some great stuff.
Yeah. There's this business influencer named Cody Sanchez, who I follow on social media. And she said that like in the late 1800s, something like 80% of Americans were business owners. But today it's only 7% of Americans are business owners. And I was like, wow, that kind of really surprised me. And, it's being a business owner, it is a 24/7 job. Yeah. And, there are perks. I can meditate after lunch and take a nap, or I love to surf and I can go surfing, in the morning and start late and all that stuff. So there are perks to it. But it definitely comes with stressors it's very much up and down, and actually, you have to, it's hard.
I was going to ask you this. So like how many jobs a year, what does that really look like practically?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And I'm really transparent about money. I'm not going to tell you my exact amount of money I made last year, but I had a pretty healthy 6-figure salary for my business last year. Yeah. And I think I only shot like under 30 days, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. Wow. And that's travel and stuff like that. It may have been a little bit more than that. And that was about from like 7 clients too, which is also kind of crazy. Yeah. And so the rest of the time, I'm a professor, but then I'm spending a lot of time marketing. Yeah. And I do think that my marketing could be more effective. Like I paid a marketing team last year to help me bring more sales leads. And, that's the first time I had ever done that. It's just so hard to do everything. If like we were talking about earlier, if I could just focus on the fun, creative side, then I think I'd have a lot more fulfillment. And it's just that the marketing side, not that it's not fun. And when you put in all that work to market and you land those jobs, that's like, really exciting. Yeah. You have to stay motivated because like I was saying, you can send out hundreds of messages and only a few people are going to get back to you. And of those few messages, what of them will turn into jobs? Yeah. And I will say that, LinkedIn, would you consider LinkedIn a form of social media, Zach?
Well, we've heard from others that LinkedIn is a really great place to find, like how you're talking about cold calling, like that's a great place that people have found to find agencies, find art directors, creative directors, and reach out to them that way. So I think it certainly has use for photographers and as a place to promote yourself, to be more visible.
Yeah. And I am the king of LinkedIn in that like my Instagram game's kind of weak in terms of not posting enough and making it consistent, but I definitely pretty much post 2 to 3 times a week on LinkedIn. And that's where I generate most of my sales leads. And just like you're saying, you can look up, Nat Geo photo editor, connect with them. And funny story, I was lecturing this one time, showing students how to use LinkedIn. I said, here's a Nat Geo photo editor, just added her randomly. She messaged me back. Now, Nat Geo did not end up hiring me, which would have been, I don't know if my work fits with Nat Geo, maybe for like a photo documentary series. but she ended up guest lecturing in one of my classes.
Wow.
And it was awesome, you know. And so, you know, I feel like those it's like everyone wants to shoot for Nat Geo. I feel like they're like the photo editor gods that, you know, you like can hardly get in contact with. And so, and that was just due to chance. So it's definitely a powerful tool. The problem with LinkedIn is that I think if you have that 9-to-5 job, I don't think people are like looking at LinkedIn all the time. So like if I, as a photographer, as a freelancer, and I'm reaching out to a creative director, like, hey, look at my work, I don't think they're on LinkedIn all the time. And also with all the great new AI tools, you can you can message people now through AI, you know, get the auto thing going. And they're just people, like I get them just on LinkedIn. People are just getting more and more bombarded with these like robot messages. And I think some of my messages go to people's spam boxes. And so you have to find a way. You know, actually, this is pretty cool. This guy marketed to me recently, and he said, hey, can I make a 5-minute video on how your LinkedIn profile can be better? And I said, sure. So he like screenshotted my LinkedIn profile and gave me a 5-minute critique on how it could be improved upon. And it worked. Like I paid attention to me. I don't know if I'm going to end up hiring him, but like if I want to hire someone to market for me through LinkedIn, I might hire him just because he put forth that effort. So there are these cool video components, as I'm sure you're aware of, that you can send to people that are more original and gets rid of that AI robotic message thing.
Man, that's a really great tip. I'm gonna remember that one myself. I want to close this out. I'm curious if there's like a piece of advice that you find yourself giving your students a lot, or something that maybe you would tell yourself, you know, back when you were first starting, moving to LA and all that stuff. Like for somebody who's just getting started, wanting to do the kind of work that you do, you know, what's one thing that you would tell them to help them along?
Yeah, as a young photographer starting out, you got to be really hungry. Business is as equally important as art. Just what it is. Start your investment portfolio sooner. Get that SEP IRA. If you're, you know, in your early 20s or however old you are, I just would start putting any money into that as soon as you can. Because when you're freelancing and you're super young, you just don't want to wait to do that. Another big piece of advice is we're so bombarded with images through our phones. The average person spend 4 hours a day on their phone. If you're in your 20s and you're spending 4 hours a day on your phone, by the time you're 90 years old, you'll have spent something like 10 years of your life on your phone. Jeez. Now, I know we have to make phone calls. And I always think unless you're like a stockbroker or something, I'm not trying to call the kettle black in the sense of, you know, I'm not on my phone, right? But I just don't think they're just so distracting. We're bombarded by so many images. I know I'm getting on a little bit of a side tangent here.
That's great.
That as a photographer, you really have to make your images stand out. And so that's why if you can come up with some really special, unique style, it's going to help you stand out. The other last piece of advice I want to give is, as a photographer these days, you should be a filmmaker. Photography and motion I see them as the same play now. And pretty much every job I'm on, I have to film motion. Now, when you're a filmmaker, you know, they can be a director, you know, grip lighting, film editor, all those different things. And so it's not like there's some film editor, like there's a bunch of film editors that are also photographers, right? And so, but there are a lot of photographers that are filmmakers. Like if you went to, you know, the photo agency's website, artdepartment.com, right? It's like some of the biggest fashion photographers, celebrity photographers in the world. If you go to pretty much any one of their portfolios, there's going to be motion on it. So that's just something I just emphasize just in such an extreme way. If you're doing a photo shoot, you probably should film some sort of motion of that as well.
Yeah, maybe just say a little bit more about that, because I think it could be interpreted broadly. Do you mean just shoot some video clips of the same things that you're shooting photos of? Do you mean create an edited like clip of video, or what does that look like in practice for you?
That's a great question, Zach. I think you could take your still photos and turn that into a GIF. Or GIFs. I think, you know, for example, like I shoot a lot of lifestyle advertising of people looking very happy in these amenity situations, you know, and so picture someone at a pool, you know, having a happy hour cocktail. I'm taking photos, you know, switch it over to motion just for a few minutes. and just have them doing the happy lifestyle thing. The lighting, if you're outdoors, it's hopefully going to be predominantly natural light if you're not using your strobes, and it's just going to give you more content. And it's more work to have to edit that and put that on your website or turn it into a social media post and all those things. But it's just an opportunity to get paid more as well. You can increase your day rate if you're filming. You can charge for film editing. You can charge more for renting equipment. And that's a big thing too in my business. And that's very normal within photography. Is you buy on big advertising photo shoots, you have to rent equipment. And so I learned when I was younger that you can buy up a bunch of your own equipment and then rent it back to the client, because you're going to have to rent. You're going to have to rent the equipment from somewhere. So if you go to New York City, it's like either you have to rent it at a local rental house, or you could bring your own equipment and rent that back to the client. And that is 100% totally normal and okay to do.
That's brilliant. I think probably a lot of people will just assume that they have to bring their own stuff and not charge the client for it. That's yet another amazing nugget. Gosh, Tom, thank you so much. This has been incredible. So many helpful tips and tricks and just inspiration. So thank you. If people want to see your book, see more of your images, connect with you, what's the best place for them to find you there?
I got a few websites. One is tomsandersphoto.com. That's my that's like my celebrity, tattoo work I was talking about. And then my other website, seniorlivingphotography.com. And then I have another website called seniorstockphotos.com of all my seniors of stock images.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Zach.